Hi guys, it's me. It's been a while. I'm sorry, I had a migraine, otherwise you would have heard from me earlier in the week. But you're hearing from me now, and I have a guest today on Views with Verse, the lovely Miss Stella Rain Dancer. I'm getting it right. My brain is not working. Stella Rain Dancer on YouTube and Instagram, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. Hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Joey. So yeah, I'm known as Stellar Rain Dancer on YouTube and on Instagram and stuff, but my real name is Jess, so you guys can call me that too if you want. It's all good. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be here today. This is an honor and a privilege. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So we actually did an interview already over on Jess's channel, which may or may not be out by the point that I get this one up. I'm not sure when this one's going to go live yet, but if it is, go check that out afterwards and you can hear more of us talking all about the Morrigan,
Yes.
which is what we're going to be doing today. So do you want to tell people about your book? I think that might be a really great place to start. And
Sure.
I can see kitties reflected in your glass, and now I can't see anything
Yes.
else.
Yes, my cat Luna. I can't believe you can see that. That's awesome. I was going to be sitting on this meditation cushion while I was chatting with you, and then Luna came in and decided to sit here, and I didn't have the heart to move her.
No, she's more than welcome. We love the kitties. Oh, they're so cute.
Yeah,
We've totally derailed already. How to tell it's an interview on my channel. We've derailed already. They're so cute.
I think she looks a bit like your Daisy too, which
she does.
Which is awesome.
She does. That's so funny. Oh, it's like, why is Daisy reflecting back in me? No. Okay. Regrouping. Please tell us all about your book.
So this is the book that we're talking about. It's called My Name is the Morrigan, and it's published through the Girl God Publishing. And it is a children's book designed to introduce kids or grown-ups, for that matter, to the Morrigan.
Mm-hmm.
It's full color, and Arna Bartz has done the illustrations.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, she's an amazingly talented artist. And it's all about how you can work with the Morrigan, what she represents, what she can help people with, and ways to connect with her and to honor her.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
It was released earlier this year.
Yeah, that's so gorgeous. It's beautiful. Yeah. So what inspired you to do this? Because this is quite an unusual approach, with it being like primarily perhaps a children's book. That's not something that a lot of people would think maybe to do straight away. So what inspired you to come to it from that angle?
Well, actually, I had come across another book, an author from the Girl God Publishing first, Tamara Albana, and she wrote My Name is Inanna. And I don't remember how I came across her online, but I found her content. I loved the stuff that she put out, and I decided to get a Kindle version of her book and read through it, and I was amazed. This is the type of thing that I really wanted to have for my own kids, because I have 3 of them. And I've been a bit outspoken on my channel before about how I think it is a good idea to raise your kids pagan, or at least introduce them to the concepts of it, if that is something that you feel is appropriate. And I wanted to be able to read to my kids stories about gods and goddesses that were powerful and inspired me. And when I found her book and found out that there were other books in the series and then new ones to come, I started to think about whether or not this is something that I wanted to contribute to myself. And one day I was sitting in my office and I had a nice hot cup of tea, and I sat down and I was just compelled to open up a Word document and start typing. And most of what was recognizably in the book now came out in minutes. And I actually had since become friends with Tamara online. I sent her the, I guess you'd call it manuscript. It was still just a Word document then. I sent it to her and I said, what do you think? And she said, I think you should send it to Trista, the publisher. Mm-hmm. And I did. And they asked me just to flesh it out just a little bit more. And the second draft of it ended up becoming what's in the book now.
That's great. It's really beautiful. It's really interesting, because I was thinking about this and I was like, growing up, I had Enid Blyton's I forgot what it's called, but it's the Greek mythology basically, and the gods and goddesses. And I still have that book somewhere, and I loved it as a kid. And it's really interesting to me that we are exposed. I mean, this is from a UK perspective,
Yeah.
but we are really exposed to like the Greek mythology and to some extent the Roman change of that and the Egyptian, but we're never really exposed to the Celtic mythology unless you really go looking for it. And so that's a really interesting thing that's happened, that the Celtic mythology, which is closer to home for us and for people in Germany with the Gaulish Celts, you don't really see a lot of that. So do you feel like that was absent, and that kind of is what called to you to speak to children in about the Morrigan and her myths?
I certainly, like, I'm of Celtic descent myself. My family history is Irish and Scottish, Welsh. Actually, my dad's parents, they have Welsh descent. I actually call my grandmother on his side Nine, which is Welsh for grandma. And when his father was alive, I called him Tide, which is Welsh for grandpa. So, as well as having some good old-fashioned English in there and some German and a little bit of French and stuff. So like I am almost completely Celtic, I guess you would, in descent, but I also have a little bit of Aboriginal descent, Canadian Aboriginal First Nations, the Métis. It's a few generations back. It's very small amount, but it's there. And so we were taught a lot of the Aboriginal history, or at least a good introduction to their culture in our immediate area. So I live in BC, so we learned a lot about the Haida, which is a particular band of Native Americans. And we learned a bit about how Native Americans were treated across the rest of our country. But we didn't learn a whole lot of British or Celtic history either. We didn't even learn about the Romans conquering the Brits until I took an ancient civilization class in grade 12 of high school. Like, that was completely removed from our normal curriculum. So when I decided to kind of, write this book and approach the publisher with it, I was more trying to specifically reclaim this goddess and present her to kids as someone who you could work with, or grown-ups for that matter, that you could work with. I wasn't so much trying to reclaim Celtic history or mythology as it just was about making the Morrigan approachable and understandable to anyone who read it. But now that you said that, it kind of makes me want to write ones about other goddesses in the Celtic pantheon, because there's so much that we don't know about a lot of them, because the history wasn't written down until, I think it was the 1100s or something like that, by Christian monks.
Yep. It's problematic, to say the least.
Yes.
If you guys have been following me on this channel, then we've talked a little bit about the problems of the mythology with regards to the Morrigan, because there's so much of it that is missing, and there is so much of it that we just don't know, and what we do have is dissected over and over and over again. But it's also written by Christians, and the Morrigan became a demonized fae. And there's a lot of interesting tidbits that go into Arthurian myth that are Celtic mythologies.
Yeah.
But there is so much that we're missing.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting actually as well that you talked about how you wanted to address the idea of her being approachable, because I feel like this has been something that has drove me as well, because a lot of people, when I first said it's the Morrigan, were like, don't know about that. And I was like, what? The Morrigan has been with me my entire life, so I wasn't afraid at all. I can see her being an imposing goddess, quite strong in her energy, but I was never really afraid of her. I wouldn't try and, make her angry at me. It's not a good idea, but I hadn't been afraid of her. And I feel like It's less so now than it was when I started out, because a few more people are talking about her now in a way of, you know, reverence, respect, but not fear. So do you feel that kind of inspired you? Was that your experience, that you felt that there was a lot of kind of, I don't know, fear mongering around the Morrigan?
Yeah, there is. I flat out have had someone comment that my working with the Morrigan is scary and that I should be very afraid for myself. And I've had people say, like, why would you want to work with a she-demon?
Oh, I love that one. I've had that one too.
Yeah, maybe it was the same ignoramus commenting.
I don't know. There's a few of them.
Yeah. YouTube is great sometimes, isn't it? But yeah, it struck me as that being one of the biggest hurdles to overcome when it came to working with her, as realizing that, you know, the Morrigan is technically a collection of a lot of goddesses, and yeah, a lot of those aspects are warrior or harbinger of death type of aspects of her. But it's also said that she, you know, one of her aspects is Anu, who is very, very much known to be an earth and fertility goddess, and that she can be mothering. She had children. At least one of her aspects did. And, you know, trying to just pigeonhole her into she's a scary goddess serves nothing. And I think ultimately it comes down to when the Christians came over and they started to conquer the Celts, they were trying to remove some of the, shall we say, troublesome aspects of their society so that they could introduce their own in order to maintain power. And what's one of the easiest ways to do it? It's to subjugate half of your population. Demonize a goddess, demonize a type of worship and practice, and, you know, put one half of the population behind the scenes and not doing the thinking and not having authority, and you have a much easier time conquering an entire country.
Well, they definitely promoted subservience, particularly in the female populace. And Morrigan definitely did not fit with their ideals of a subservient, tame, quiet, God-fearing little woman in the kitchen. And
no, she did not.
And it's really interesting to me to see the divide about how they managed to make some goddesses saints. So that happened with Brigitte, for example.
Yes, who I also work with.
I love her, but I have to say her energy's not tame either. She has her justice aspect, her fiery arrows. She has a blacksmithing aspect. How can anybody who blacksmiths be like tame? But I think she's very alchemaic. She definitely alchemizes one thing into another. So she became a saint, but then of course the Morrigan, what are they going to do with that? It's all about battle. It's in a lot of the myths that we have remaining, and prophecy and magic, and these are things that, you know, we don't want in the new Christian religion that's taking over. Get rid of it. So we had to make it fearful, and some of that has definitely trickled down. But I think it speaks to the power of what dark goddesses, that a lot of them have survived in really powerful ways, even though a lot of their mythology has been destroyed or forgotten or abandoned. Because I was talking about this with the Kaliak as well, that almost all of her stuff is gone. Almost all of her mythology is gone. But she's,
I was going to say, even Kali's a mother goddess too. Like,
yeah. Well, the Hindus do a lot better because they've preserved a lot of their mythology, and it can sometimes help to have a look at that side of things when you're struggling with certain answers, because there are similarities. I feel like the Morrigan is far more primal than just being from ancient Ireland. I think it goes way back Byzantine personally, and like older. She's definitely a force. So sometimes it can help to like cross-check mythology, I guess. Although mythology is only a part of it. So there is, of course, personal gnosis and the evolution of goddess. So what's the most unusual thing that you have come across when working with the Morrigan? The thing that's not in any of the books and you've been a bit like, I don't know about this because no one else has talked about it, or because I think when a lot of us first get into the particularly the Morriganic path, but many paths, we feel like we can't venture too far from what we know from other people's experiences. So is there any experiences that you had that were like, this is off the beaten track?
I think the biggest thing that was different about working with her compared to any other deities, and certainly that I didn't read much about people working with, was the fact that she really wanted me to be more like in the spotlight, and to talk about her more, and to make some of what I did with her more public. I had the YouTube channel before I started working with the Morrigan. But, you know, I was definitely tight-lipped about some of the aspects that went on in my personal practice. And all of a sudden, I was being encouraged to kind of open up and talk about some of the stuff that happened with it, and to write about her in this book, and to really bring her name out into the open more. And that was definitely different. It wasn't until quite recently that I discovered that I'm not alone in that experience, that there are a lot of people who feel like the Morrigan really gets them to open up about it, and to almost be like her PR service, I guess. But I realized that in listening to some of the other people's discussions of her, that this was partly about making her more known in the modern world, but also to just to get like working with goddess energy in general more well known and more accepted, and things like that. And yeah, it's been an interesting process so far, but one that I'm quite enjoying.
I find that too. I honestly feel like there's two threads there that you've kind of touched on. One is definitely voice and voice work, and there has been a lot of Dark Goddess voice work coming forward. I'm using Dark Goddess through gritted teeth, guys. I need a better descriptor word, but that's what we describe them as. But so there you go. But voice work has definitely been a thing, and for me, she was like, "You are a voice, speak." And that is something directly that she said to me in meditation once, because I was like, is it okay for me to be doing this? At the time I was doing it, I think the only other person talking on YouTube was Laura Daligan, who's amazing. And that's when I started. And so there wasn't a whole lot of information on YouTube. So I was a bit like, is this okay? Because one of the things that I had trouble with was kind of aligning personal prognosis and the evolution of Dark Goddess to what was already available. There's a lot of information available, which is very mythology based. And I was like, I love mythology. I'm down with it. I love etymology. I love chasing the words down to their roots and unraveling it. I think that's great. I'm also a student of history, which gives me a critical eye with regards to myth. You too.
Totally me. I love history. I am a huge history buff, which I think is partly why the Celtic pantheon in general really calls to me, because there's so much of it that it's not as easily accessible as, like, say, Greek and Roman mythology. There's far less books on it. Certainly not a lot of children's books, and certainly not a lot of stuff that's beautifully illustrated and, you know, easy to get your hands on. So I think in that regard, it fascinates me a lot.
I just wonder whether this is kind of like the anti-censorship movement of Dark Goddess. That's kind of what it feels like. We have been censored for far too long. That's what it feels like. We're going to have all of the information and all of the angles to talk about, and all of the poetry and all of the everything. But it's actually documented that she actually calls herself a poetress above all. So like the spoken word in particular is sacred to her, and it's in the mythology. So I mean, the Druids didn't like writing things down, but we don't live in that age. So that's an interesting thought, actually. How do you feel about the idea of them feeling that the sacred word shouldn't be written down, and where do you kind of fall within where that is? in modern, because we write books, so we are writing it down.
To the best of my knowledge, the Druids didn't write things down not because they felt that it was sacrilege, but because they didn't have a way of preserving paper very well. Paper wasn't something that I think the Celts ever really made much. So, I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems to me that if they felt that they didn't have a acceptable way of writing it down, then learning to memorize, mythology and stories and ritual would have just been the necessary step that follows. I personally, I mean, I'm a writer. I've written a book, I write a blog, I write a journal. I don't use an electronic planner. I use a paper planner. I love the feeling of pen on kneading paper, and I love the feel of writing.
The scratchy noise of a pen.
Oh, exactly. And I just personally feel like in this day and age, there isn't a ban on writing down your personal gnosis or your personal workings. So just do it, to just write it down. I'm definitely one of those people who I do what works for me, and I kind of just say fuck the rest.
We are anti-censorship. You heard it here first, everybody.
Yes, we are.
So the other side of what you were talking about before is actually like the anti-fear thing that I think definitely is like typifies lessons with the Morrigan, which is something I've been talking about recently, which is being fierce in the face of your fear. This is a dark goddess thing through and through. I'm not even going to say maybe. It definitely is. And it's a common thread throughout many dark goddess energies, but the Morrigan definitely does this, which is like, oh, you're afraid of this thing. Well, time to face it. And yep. I don't care whether you want to or not. You come in kicking and screaming, or you come in willingly. It's up to you, but you are coming. So how has that been for you? Because you said that, you had to kind of like put yourself out there with regards to your voice work and recording and things, and facing that, which it can be a surreal experience to overcome sometimes. And there are a lot of kind of fear elements attached to it, I think, speaking about the Morrigan, or for the Morrigan, if you like. So how has that been for you? Have you found that was a lesson to overcome fear?
Still a lesson to overcome fear. It is an ongoing thing. I mean, I'm very introverted by nature. Mm-hmm. I take like the Myers-Briggs personality test. Like, how you get to see like what level of E versus I you are. Mm-hmm. I'm like 80% introvert, 20% extrovert. Mm-hmm. So I always like to joke around that I'm not an extrovert. I just play one on TV or on YouTube as it is. So overcoming some of my fears about working with people and putting myself out there more has definitely been, and it still is, a little bit of a struggle for me. It is a fear I'm working on dealing with every day as I, hover my hand over the do I promote this or not button, and do I talk about this or not. And so yeah, that's definitely something. She puts you in positions where you need to grow and you need to expand as a person. And when you get comfortable and when you get complacent, that's when she kind of comes swooping in and tells you that it's time to get up off of your high knee and get a move on. There's something new to do now.
All of that.
Yeah. Really, all of that.
So it's really, for me, been 2018 in particular has been a year of major shift, turbulent change, and the Morrigan, I swear, has had a hand in all of it. There are synchronicities which I'm not ready to tell the world yet. I will someday, but I can say that she definitely had a huge hand in it. So I was going to ask you what your big lesson of 2018 via the Morrigan was.
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it would be to work on controlling what I can control and to let go of the stuff that I can't, and to just work within what has been laid in front of me, because I too have had some challenges this year, and it was some of them were quite frustrating and aggravating for us, and are still a little bit ongoing. But to try to stay calm in the face of big changes happening, and work with what I've got and move forward with what I've got, and to be grateful for the things that I do have and the people who have stuck by me in the meantime. That was huge. I have definitely been shown this year who some of my real friends are, and just how much they care about me. And that has it's right at my heart, because I struggled with friendships for many, many years, especially as a kid, and female friendships in particular. So having
there is a common theme happening here.
Yeah. So having this band of women now who that I can talk to about just about anything, I can call on when I need them. They've shown me an incredible amount of love and support, and it's amazing. It is really amazing.
Yeah. Gratitude, community, and I'm going to say it's been community and sisterhood. It's not been gender specific really for me, although a lot of women have gone above and beyond to help me this year in ways that I could never have asked for and I never could have imagined. And for me, the Morrigan said break, and I didn't want to break, and she said break, and she wanted me to to the point where I had no other choice. I had to break and ask for help. And once that was done, my entire perception around community, around sisterhood was changed forever, because I've never seen or felt such an outpouring of people, and I said it like this: I broke, I fell, and there were 1,000 hands ready to catch me that I didn't expect to be there.
Yes.
And she had a part in that. I definitely had a part in that, in ways that I can't really put into words. I still can't. It still makes me kind of speechless, which for me is not the usual state of affairs. But being grateful for that sisterhood, being overwhelmed with how connected we are to people, even if we don't always see it or realize it, and the kind of the ripples of how we've touched other people's lives, and how that ripple comes back and helps to touch our lives and change us, has been a massive lesson of 2018, as well as not putting up with stuff which is no good for you or beneath you or holding you back. And then as we're going into 2019, I'm kind of already getting this vibe of like, be your fiercest, most authentic self, like take up your space, put your crown back on, like own it. That energy for me is already coming into as we move into 2019 already, and we're not even like tipping over the scales yet. Have you found that? Have you had some like horror?
Yeah, totally. I feel really like I'm not typically a celebrate New Year's kind of person. I don't tend to go all out to attend parties or throw bashes at my house. I like to ring in the new year very quietly by going to bed at a decent hour and then sleeping through all the fireworks and waking up completely not hungover. You know, like that's how I like to do New Year's for myself. And then I usually like to put all the Christmas decorations, take them all down and put them away on New Year's Day, so that I'm starting the new year with a clean slate. But this year, I really feel excited about crossing over to the new year. And I don't think we'll be staying up till midnight and watching any balls drop or numbers change over or anything like that. But we are going to have a friend over and just relax and have a good time. But it feels like there's some really intense and amazing things on the horizon, and I'm excited. I really am excited.
I am.
It's a really awesome word for 2019, so I'm kind of like,
yeah, I am too, for the first time in a very long time. Like there's all of this sort of, and I've noticed it with quite a lot of people who are working with Dark Goddess energy, actually, is suddenly there's all of these doors opening for people in all sorts of different ways. And for me, there has been, through that sisterhood connection, there has been a lot of heavily ritualized doors opening. I'm going to rituals, going to temples, meeting people, meeting community, being part of a red tent for the first time, going to sacred places. That has all been like an explosion in my life at the end of 2018. And so there's definitely been like this sacred energy that's come in towards the end of the year. And you know, the Morrigan definitely has played a huge part in that. Cool. I had a question and my brain just went yes, I'm leaving this then. You can all enjoy me trying to remember the last question in the last 10 minutes that we've got. Oh dear. Okay, so if you were to give somebody advice about the Morrigan, what would your top advice be? Let's do it that way.
I would say that it is a relationship to not take lightly. Mm-hmm. It is one that you enter into knowing that you are going to be routinely asked to sacrifice a part of yourself on the altar of life. That you will find out that, you know, you're having a problem with XYZ, or you're in a bad habit with ABC, and she's going to ask you to shed that skin, and she's going to ask you to sacrifice it and to pick up new habits and to grow as a person. And I think that's why she gets such a fearsome reputation, because working with her, you are constantly in the process of walking through the fires of transformation and being remade. And that is the linchpin in the relationship with the Morrigan. But at the same time, she gives you the strength to take on these big challenges and to make these changes that need to be made. And she helps you become a better version of yourself. And she helps you work towards the things that you really do want in your life, as well as the things that you really do need. And at the end of the day, that's what I want out of a relationship with deity. I want to be better. I want to help more people. I want to spread the word about this powerful and amazing goddess. I want to deepen the bonds of sisterhood with my friends and with people who I haven't even yet met. And I just, it's daunting to think about of all the things that I've been through in the last few years. At the same time, with hindsight, I can see that every single one of those obstacles has just been another stepping stone towards something bigger and better. And it just leaves me floored with gratitude for all the things I've done that I feel she helped me to do.
Absolutely. I can't say it better than that. She just said it all. Well, I sort of talked about this in terms of, I think our fear means that we grow basically like an exoskeleton of fear around us, right? That's our comfort zone. That's where our comfort zone actually is. It's a cage that we have grown around who we truly are. And the Morrigan basically asks us to tear that off. And it's painful, and it's a struggle, and it hurts, and it will bleed, and it wounds you in the process of doing it. But then you learn to heal yourself, and you learn who you are when you're not afraid to be yourself. And you learn, like we've said, you learn the people who are truly around for you in that process, and you learn to be more yourself. It really is a process of unmaking all the things you were told about yourself and getting back to who you are. And the Morrigan knew all along who you are. She sees possibly all versions of you throughout time. Who knows? And she definitely knows the truth of you. And she definitely asks you to be honorable and to step up and honor your word and honor your oath and honor your bond. And this year, I know what she did to me. I know what you did, accusational tone, right? So I wanted independence. And we got independence.
Yeah, you got it.
The hard way.
What's that phrase? Be careful what you wish for. But to expand on your exoskeleton thing, I think when you take that off, yeah, it's wounding and it hurts. But at the same time, all of a sudden you have more room to grow.
To breathe.
To get bigger, and you get to breathe easier. And, you know, there's nothing worse than, you know, backing yourself into a cage or into a corner and feeling like you can't get out. And when you finally are out, it can be a little bit overwhelming at first, but then you realize just how damn good it feels. And you know, once you finish going through the wounding and the healing, if you look at that cage again, you'd never want to go back in it. Never.
Never in a million years do we ever want to go back. Nope.
Nope.
We're free. We're free. And we're about at time, so that's actually a really nice place to kind of end it before Zoom ends it for us. So thank you so much for joining me today. And like I said, we will also be over on Jess's channel. I will endeavour to remember to put all the links down below. I'll try. And if they're not there straight away, they will be there when my migraine... There you go. My migraine brain goes... Blah, blah. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was a thing I needed to do. I'm going to write it down, actually. Links. There we go. Links is written down, so I remember to write those down. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your unique perspective on the Morrigan and all about your book. I hope you'll come back again. And if you guys haven't checked out her channel, you can right now, down here, down below.
Down below.
That's how we're ending it. Down below.
Down below.
Down below.
I love we're getting synchronized dancing going here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, you are more than welcome. And I hope to see you again soon.
You betcha.